Good morning, buen día a todos. If you don't mind, I'm going to speak English today. But of course, we have interpretation, which is wonderful to see. And also great to see so many people from around the world in the chat, which is obviously something that we appreciate very much from the UN perspective. So if it's okay, I will just go ahead. And my colleague Jenny is going to be sharing my slides for me just in case I have any technical issues. So thank you for that, Jenny. So I actually think it's really a nice segue, building on the excellent presentation that we just saw, because I'm going to maybe zoom out a little bit and talk about how we view information environments from the UN perspective, and what are some of the concrete measures we have been developing to try to create healthier information ecosystems. And very much building on the points we just heard about moving from kind of, the more reactive to proactive approaches, or really a combination of the two. So we use the term information integrity at the UN, and I'd just like to start by explaining what we mean by that. For us, information integrity refers to an information ecosystem where reliable information and accurate information is available to everyone. And it enables people to engage meaningfully in public life, to make informed decisions, and to exercise their rights. This ecosystem is shaped by a range of actors, including governments, of course, tech companies, the media, civil society, and individuals. Strengthening information integrity for us means really building resilient societies that foster trust and public empowerment at the individual level. So that's kind of what we're aiming to achieve. But of course, we face many risks. And, we just heard a lot about the risks around disinformation. For us, strengthening information integrity matters now, frankly, more than ever. We face so many risks, what we term information risks, across our information environments around the world. Now, these include, of course, disinformation, hate speech, but also, restrictions on media freedom and the malicious use of technologies, including AI, all to undermine the integrity of information spaces. This whole summit is focused on AI, and I think for good reason. And I will talk a little bit about how we see the risks and opportunities around emerging technologies. But the impacts are really far-reaching. And I just have this visual here to stress that the way that we see this from the UN perspective, and the reason it is such a priority for us, is that these information risks are really impacting pretty much all of the priority areas that the UN works on, from sustainable development to including climate action, to democratic processes, really undermining human rights, peace and security, humanitarian aid, and international law. So it is really fundamental to our goals and objectives at the UN that we take action to strengthen information integrity. Regarding AI specifically, I wanted to talk a little bit about the risks that we see there, because these technologies are, as you all know, fundamentally transforming how people access information. And they are, in our view, effectively making us guinea pigs in a large-scale information experiment, which has far-reaching consequences. And it is putting the resilience of our societies to the test. So if harnessed well, the results could reap benefits to humanity and to our planet. But as we know, there are many significant concerns. So the UN Secretary General established a multidisciplinary representative AI advisory body to undertake analysis and advance recommendations on AI governance. And in its final report that it delivered last year, which is called Governing AI for Humanity, this body raised attention to AI's impact on information integrity. So from a list of AI-related risk areas, which you can see here, it's quite small, but a plurality of experts that were surveyed said that they were concerned or very concerned about harms related to damage to information integrity, about 78% of them. As you can see, it's at the very top of this list. So that just highlights the risk and concerns we have around emerging tech. And we see these risks around AI as multifaceted and posing different challenges. So obviously, as we know, these AI tools are proliferating in the public domain, especially in a number of countries, but they cannot be uniformly relied on as sources of accurate information. I'm sure we have all experienced this in our daily lives and our use. But we're faced with a lack of transparency as to how these tools work and the sources of the information used. So people, are increasingly using this convenient data, even though it's flawed, and they don't have the requisite AI literacy to assess its veracity or reliability. They simply cannot know how accurate and reliable the information they are receiving is. This, of course, is compounded by the misuse of AI in facilitating the creation and dissemination of false and hateful information at scale by a broad range of actors for financial or strategic gain. It is very easy to do that at scale now with minimal cost. So these factors are contributing to a kind of broader challenge that we see, which is the erosion of trust in any information source and in the information ecosystem more broadly, because people just don't know what to believe. Of course, AI technologies also carry risks for information pluralism and the deepening of the digital divide. And obviously undermine the economic viability of media and other industries. Journalism and other reliable data is being scraped, it's being summarized, it's being used to train AI without permission and without compensation. And this is obviously having a very detrimental impact on the public interest media, which is already facing huge financial challenges. And then obviously there's a lack of transparency around how AI is being deployed. So at the UN, we have kind of several strands of our framework for action, because this is a very complex challenge, and it really does require diverse expertise and different stakeholders to find what we see as different entry points for change. So, we've taken up this challenge through a number of initiatives, and all seek to safeguard the fundamental right to freedom of expression in the face of these mounting risks. So there's a few listed here. One is the Global Principles for Information Integrity, which the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres launched just over a year ago. And they kind of form the basis of our framework for action. We also have various other UN system initiatives and guidelines, including through colleagues at UNESCO and others. And then in September, countries at the UN General Assembly agreed in the Pact for the Future and the Global Digital Compact to specific actions to strengthen information integrity. The global principles that I mentioned are kind of our basis for multi-stakeholder action. And I won't talk about them in too much detail because they're a long policy document. They are available, we can put them in the chat for anyone who hasn't seen them. But effectively, what they do is lay out recommendations for stakeholders across the information ecosystem, all of those that you see here, including governments, tech, advertisers, the media, civil society, and also what the UN system ourselves can do working with different partners. And we kind of frame these recommendations around 5 core principles, which you see here. And I'm sure none of these will be hugely surprising, but one of them is societal trust and resilience, which is really getting to the heart of the root causes of why disinformation and hate can take hold, looking at trust and safety in the digital space, and the importance of upholding human rights. Healthy incentives, which is where we address the business model of big tech. Public empowerment, which is that individual empowerment piece, so giving people the literacy they need to navigate information spaces safely and effectively, but also understand how their data is being sold and used and why they are receiving algorithmically amplified information. Obviously, independent, free and pluralistic media, without which information integrity is simply not possible. And then transparency and research, which is a huge challenge in this space. So my team has been working across the UN system and with partners around the world to implement these global principles and to move from policy to practice. So I'm just going to, if you'll allow me to share with you the vision and direction that we are working towards, and maybe then talk about where some particular groups like journalists fit in there. Because given the complex challenges we face, it's really become increasingly important, we think, to articulate a very clear theory of change that reflects the broad global efforts to strengthen information integrity. No single stakeholder, no single group can address these challenges alone.